Newstalk ZB.
3 minutes away from 8. Sport after 8 in the commentary box. Of course, meantime, the Prime Minister's with us for this Monday morning. Good to see you.
Good morning, Mike. Good to be with you.
Iran, is it legal, do you reckon?
Well, look, ultimately that's up to the Americans and the Israelis to assert. I noticed in the UN Security Council they invoked Article 51 as the basis for the attacks that they've launched. But let's be under no illusion, this was not a regime that New Zealand has supported or been in favour of for decades under successive governments. I mean, it's a regime that's brutally repressing its own people, murdering tens of thousands of people. It's one that's actually been arming armed proxies and terrorism all around the world. And, you know, we've had years of diplomacy to try and manage the nuclear program and the ballistic missile program as well, and to no effect. So, you know, we won't be mourning the loss of this leader.
Do you endorse the attacks?
Well, again, I understand why they're doing it, because they are obviously, you know, making sure that Iran, which has been threatening a lot of peace and security in the world, is actually you know, that stops. And ultimately, it's up to the Iranian people now to determine what happens next and where it goes to.
So what do you say to Helen Clark? Why the civility?
Well, I think she called my post disgraceful. I'd say what is disgraceful is a regime that actually kills its own people indiscriminately in the way that it has. And as I said, I don't think, you know, New Zealand under successive governments have had a pretty strong policy of condemning Iranian actions.
Can you understand? See, I think Hipkins is not far behind her, and the ideology that drives this. The almost unique set of circumstances with Iran is you can probably argue it is illegal, but does anyone mourn that, or does anyone take it anywhere or go anywhere? In other words, you know, we're on the right side of history potentially, aren't we?
Yeah, look, I mean, I can't presuppose what the US and Israelis obviously made independent attacks, you know, so we weren't informed about those beforehand or in advance or any of that stuff. You know, they may well have information that has informed the legal basis for those attacks. They have, as I said, invoked Article 51 at the UN Security Council as a basis for that. But I just think, you know, be under no illusions, this was an evil regime. I mean, this is a regime that has been incredibly destabilising in the world, you know, funding the Houthis, Hezbollah, lots of proxies all around the world, causing huge amounts of pain and suffering and loss of life internationally and also within its own state. It's repressed its own people tremendously over that period of time. And you know, I think, let's be clear, you know, New Zealand has condemned this regime for a long period of time.
Just before we leave the Americans, when we talked last week, we weren't quite sure what was going on with the tariffs. It was coming in at 15%. Turns out, apparently, seemingly, it's 10%. Yeah. So we materially win out of that, don't we? Bar beef and kiwi fruit. I mean, It was 15, it's now 10.
Yes, so I think we need to let the dust sort of settle a little bit, because under that law that's for 150 days, we need to see where that goes to. But yes, that's my understanding as well, that we'd be down 5. You know, we've actually improved things by 5 points. Yeah. But it's just a very chaotic environment, as you can understand. But what has been good, as I said, you know, last week, is that, you know, I'm really impressed, honestly, Mike, that I think our capability of our exporters has got a hell of a lot better in the last few years. And I've literally watched them move production out of the US, put it into Europe, move it from there, put it into China, and that literacy and that fluency to be able to do that is really good.
Actually, speaking of which, India came out with their GDP number for the last quarter over the weekend, and I can't remember what it was now, 7.8 or something. It was higher than everyone. Exactly. And so the point is, are we any further down the track than we were a week ago with Labor? Is this thing going to get done or not?
Yeah, look, I think it will. I mean, I think, you know, Macleay and O'Connor have had, you know, good series of engagements, as I understand. I think it's quite, you know, we'll be able to deal with their issues or concerns along the way, I'm sure.
Okay.
And I think at the end of the day, you've got two men who've actually been the trade ministers for the last 11 years in this country, who actually understand the opportunity that sits here.
What does Seymour know about Air New Zealand, as he alluded to over the weekend? What deep, dark secrets within Air New Zealand does David Seymour have?
Well, look, I think on Air New Zealand, what I'd say is, you know, that was a terrible result, no doubt about it. It was abysmal. And, yeah, they just need to get back to basics. They need to be able to get back to running a schedule that customers want. They need to get the aircraft working on time. They need to make sure they've got competitive pricing. They need to improve the financial and operational performance of that business. And it's good to see the new CEO and the board, you know, committing to do exactly that.
Do you know him?
I've got to know him a little bit. He wasn't there when I was there, obviously.
You got faith in him?
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to back them and you have to believe that they can do it. I mean, we've done it before. Running an airline is a hard business, but you know, you've just seen a Qantas result that's absolutely 100%. Outstanding, operating in a similar part of the world.
That's the part I don't understand, because I'm not an expert like you or him. But what I do know is this: if you look at Qatar, you look at Emirates, you look at Singapore, you look at Qantas, they are making shed loads of money.
It's been a record year for airlines all around the world.
Industry,
yep.
And our national airline cannot turn a dollar to save itself.
Yeah.
I get the engine problem, I get all of that, I understand it. But even if you add their number was 90 million. They said the 55 compensation they got, add the 90. The 90 still doesn't give you a number that you're proud of.
Yeah, I think
there's something wrong with the airline.
Well, I think that's the point, is relative to other airlines' performances, which is what you'd be wanting to look at as a CEO there. You'd say this is a poor result. As I said, when Qantas has got believes very strongly in the New Zealand economy, is going to places, they're investing and growing. There's no reason why New Zealand can't do the same.
They turned around relatively quickly. If you look at the dark days of Qantas and where they are now, that's a quick turnaround. Why can't we make a quick turnaround? Yeah. I'm asking you mainly, not only as an ex-CEO, but mainly as the bulk shareholder here.
Yeah, well, that's why I look at it and go, there's that business needs to improve its financial and operational performance. Can it do it? Absolutely. Is there enough urgency and commitment from the board and the CEO? It seems that there is. They're saying they're in for that strategic reset. Airlines need to be constant. They're hard businesses to run, but actually you don't blame
really?
others for it. You've got to fix what you can control and control what you can control.
But when you say a strategic reset, I mean, and I talked to Nickel about it last week, so surely they've had strategic resets, because this didn't happen yesterday. So on the reset, why didn't they improve? How many resets do you need without improving before you've not done the reset right?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I led it for 7 years, and I know, you have your strategic plan, and you just keep, it's implementing it, right, and executing it and improving it, and it's a business you want to be continually improving. So they've got to go back and look at, have we got the right product and the service that we're offering our customers? And are the customers happy with what we're doing or not? They've got to ask some serious questions about why their financial returns aren't as good as any other airlines around the world when it's boom times. And you've got to ask questions about operational performance. At the end of the day, the customer wants to know the schedule's working, the planes run on time, and they're getting fair pricing.
The numbers he gave me, which I thought were interesting, which is where you guys come in, landing charges up 85%, I think was his number, against inflation of 30-ish. As the chief shareholder of that airline, why are you allowing cost-plus accounting in certain areas of this country that isn't necessary? Yeah, look,
I'd sort of back it up a little bit and say, look, if you look at airfares, what are the big drivers of it? Well, certainly fuel's number one. Labour costs are probably number two. Aircraft maintenance and leasing and ownership costs are number three. Maintenance, four. And then you might get to
So he's making
charges.
Excuses, in other words.
Well, I just think there's a lot you can do in the core part of the business. Equally, you've got a Qantas that's operating with airports with similar pricing charges across Australia and New Zealand, similar regulatory environments doing well. So I would say, we can probably look at the regime and have we got the settings right. It hasn't been a priority this term. Could we look in the future? Probably, yep. But the bigger issue is actually perform the base, get back to basics and make sure that business is performing as well as it can be.
You can't sell them though, can you? And I don't go down the not this term thing.
I don't think New Zealanders would want us to 100%. Sell it. And I just don't think I think it's a strategic asset that actually, I think New Zealanders would say, look, we're a small country, 5 million people in a world of 8 billion, 195, actually having an airline like we've had. If you just look at the last 20 years, I think government ownership of Air New Zealand's been actually a good thing. I think actually the 50-50 model of mixed ownership model works really well.
If you don't have an airline, you don't have a country.
Yeah, and I think a country like ours, we need to have an airline. So I can't see that would be something that we would pursue, but at all. But and the other thing I'd say to you is, like, I heard some people calling for us to sell it now, and it's like, well, just as a business guy on any asset, given your fine car collection, Mike, I'm sure you wouldn't sell it if it depreciated all of a sudden, or if you've had a bad financial performance, that's not the time to go sell an asset, right? But I just don't think New Zealanders would be up for that, and I think it's been a net positive for us in general.
The Issues poll that's out this morning, inflation, cost of living is owned by Labor, healthcare is owned by Labor, the economy is at tie now. You own crime and law, Labor own housing and price. Is this just a grumpy electorate? Because I refuse to believe that the people who ran this country between particularly 2020 and 2023 somehow know about the economy. I mean, that's crap.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think... there's so many polls every week, to be honest, Mike, I don't sort of comment on them. But, there's no doubt about it. It's been a tough time, and it's still a tough time for some Kiwis. And cost of living is a function. When you've had years of high inflation, the issue is, even though we've got inflation in the band, people still feel life is expensive, right? Because those prices have been baked in. The inflation from previous years is baked in. But, I don't think the answer is going back to what was proposed by the Labor administration that put us into this mess, which is spend more, tax more, borrow more.
Is it possible we have so many people who are beneficiaries in this country, I don't mean pure beneficiaries, but the recipient of some state funding, that if you promise them more state funding, that's good enough for them?
I don't know. All I know is I have to be fixated single-mindedly on growing the economy. And when you grow the economy and you get wages growing faster than inflation, which it actually has been the story of our government. Actually, over the last 2 years, we have been able to get wage growth faster than inflation, which has been good because you remember when inflation was at 7.3%, wages weren't keeping up with that, and people are going backwards, by default. So that's what we've just got to focus on is growth. And when I look at it now, and you see business confidence, consumer confidence, growth in manufacturing. That's looking very positive. We've got a lot of things coming, but I get it. People still need to feel it, and I think that's what some of this is what people are playing back.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Prime Minister Christopher Luxon, 13 to 8.